Welcome Chris Crossan to a meeting of the Naples Daily News Editorial Board. Chris is running for a seat again on the Big Corkscrew Island Fire District. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
Take a couple of minutes here and tell us all about who you are and what your history is in the district.
All right, my history in the district is 7 years ago I was appointed to the position by a two-member board, myself and another gentleman. I actually put in for it, and I was fortunate enough. I did get into the interest in it because I am a firefighter. I have been so for 23 years, city of Marco Island. And the reason I got into it is because I knew we were a fledgling district, and I feel that I have a great knowledge base of best practices, not only from a fire standpoint too, but also from a financial standpoint too. I am married. My wife's a school teacher at First Baptist of Naples, second grade school teacher. I've been married for 11 years. I was born downtown NCH Naples 42 years ago, and as was my wife. I have a son. He's 8 years old. I have a daughter. She is 10 years old. They both go to First Baptist as well. And more about myself too. I enjoy golfing, enjoy a lot of family time, fishing, and I enjoy coaching football for my little beacons over at First Baptist too. And I also do a little bit of outreach with CPR instruction too as well. Coach some of the high school coaches, and a good friend of mine has the lightning detection system too, so that's a big passion of mine as well too.
All 23 years have been with Marco Island?
Yes, sir.
Fire Department?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then also too, you know, as far as growing up on the island, I did grow up with a single mom. My dad was a golf pro, so I'd get to see him, but I've always prided myself in surrounding myself with successful people, not only financially, which certainly there's a ton of them on Marco, but personally too. And I got a look at that. You know, family is my #1 priority.
So you were appointed 7 years ago. You ran what, 2000? You've run a couple of times, or
I've not been opposed yet.
Not been opposed.
It's my first opposing. Mm-hmm.
Okay, but you were appointed 7 years ago, and you've had a couple of elections since.
Yes.
Then.
Yeah, we've had yes, 2 elections.
You mentioned you bring financial expertise or best practices. Where does that come from?
That comes from my place of employment, and we run on half of one mill. The City of Marco Island Fire Department runs essentially on almost a half of one mill. So I do know what can get done and what cannot get done, especially when you take resources and you spread them out. If you have tight resources, you can get a lot more done in a smaller response area. But in a larger response area, you know, I do know what it takes. You know, I have been there on, unfortunately, both of the fatality fires that happened in East Naples not too long ago, and I have showed up on high-rises where smoke's pouring out the building, and I have to get up there. But financially wise too, you know, I know what it takes, you know, and I know what I've experienced over the years of losing a lot of great employees from not calling a man or a woman average in pay. And I know how big that is to the life safety organization when you spend years training people.
In terms of your work with the Marco Island Fire Department, what's your schedule there, and how will that work in terms of you serving?
Serving. Well, we were the first to in the state of Florida to go to what's called a 4896 schedule, or they call it a California schedule. And you know, I actually presented the PowerPoint on that schedule, and since the inception, I presented it to management. Because at that time we did have a high turnover of people, and we wanted to find something different because not a lot of people can afford to live on Marco. And I can say, and I can say this with 100%, that it's worked wonderfully. But I do have a flexible time schedule with guys having the ability to work for me, anything. So it hasn't really been an issue, and all of my friends and my coworkers are willing to step up for me for any meetings or anything that I do need.
How's the 4896 system different than the standard? I guess it's 1 day on, 2 day off for firefighters generally.
Yeah, what it does for an employee and what it does for management as well is you would take a guy and he would only have to travel 5 times a month, and he wouldn't have to travel 10 times to work. And what that does, that saved him 10 24-hour days commuting for a Marco Island employee.
So some days you would work. So then does that mean some days you work at like 2 days in a row?
Yeah, we do every
time.
time. So I'll work Friday and Saturday and then have 4 days off. And for the family life, the children don't seem to know how much long Dad is gone, but how many times he leaves, which is a huge, of course, with firefighters and police officers, divorce rates are through the roof. So it's been wonderful, and I have had young kids through the whole process. So,
Have you tried to bring that schedule to a big Corkscrew, or?
you know, I discussed it with them, and they discussed it a couple years ago. They don't shoulder the call load that Marco has, and they didn't go forward with it. You know, but Upper Captiva has. Upper Captiva has already went to that.
What's the millage rate out at the big Corkscrew now?
It's 3.5.
Okay, and Marco gets by on a half a mil.
Yeah, Marco Island does, you know, as far as quoting me, that's what generally it's accepted at. I think the whole millage rate for Marco is around 2, but I know our millage rate down there as well.
That's kept for the whole city operation.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Is that is the factor there the higher assessments that might exist on Marco Island, and so the tax money, or why is
No,
it
you know what I think it
3.5
is?
needed?
I think it's just like when you step across 41 on this side, you have high rises. You have high rises, so you have so much spread up into one building that they can shoulder that load. And Marco having 473 buildings that are considered a 3 stories or more, that lends itself to a lower millage rate, which is harder for surrounding districts.
Talk about the proposed merger.
The proposed merger. I am in support of the merger. For some of the reasons that I am in support of the merger is that I want every resident, east or west of 951, to put their head down at night and know that they're getting the same service. I know North Naples enjoys a wonderful fire service here. I know we do equally the same out there, but where can there be improvements? And the improvements that I do see right off the back are, say, a dive team. We have big lakes, we have big county lakes, we have Shady Hollow, we have places out there, hazardous materials response. I am a hazardous materials technician. I know what it takes to get it done. I know what rolls up and down those roads. I do know that Ave Maria has a huge chemistry lab out there, you know, Arthrex, all of that. But my position on the merger is I fully support it. And I think that if you have continuity of operations, that it's going to lend itself to a more positive outcome in everything.
For instance, the dive team, if you needed a dive team, North Naples would probably come out and help you out now.
They would come out if requested, but what we would need, we have some surface rescue, but if we needed an extended operation and we needed it right now, we wouldn't have that ability.
You have to jump through some hoops to get them to come out.
Yeah, and it's just like, you know, the perfect example I can use for it is if you guys did the research down in Ochopee, they lost a couple of the kids from the Immokalee Foundation, and my personal friend went out there because they did not have the ability to do that, and I don't want that for any man, woman, or child. And I was on the first dive call that instituted our dive call on Marco Island. Guy went over the bridge, went in, and we just couldn't get to him. It was deep right there. And so that's my passion, to have an all hazards encompassing. It doesn't matter whether it's brush fires, the brush fires when we lost the houses out on 6 Northeast as well. I used to live on 6 Northeast in Golden Gates District prior to living in Valencia Lakes. And that's scary. You know, my neighbors came up to me afterwards. I had already moved into Valencia Lakes. And I think that the Chiefs have done a way better job since that, losing those multiple houses on there. And that's why I think merging we're getting so big, has to happen anyways. There can't be any delineation of lines. And if it comes to the fact that East Naples and Golden Gate works too, I know that Ala Capri didn't get in the mix, but bring them on, because I think that it would be that much better, you know.
Do you think Big Corkscrew's a better blend with Golden Gate and East Naples than it is with North Naples?
I think that that they're marching eastward anyways. that their boundary lines, according to Chris Lombardo, there's not a lot left here to do in North Naples, but that it comes naturally. I think that the only real time that we get, there's two instances that we get to work together, is on a high-rise fire or on a brush fire. And I think the chiefs have worked it out that wonderfully we do so in the brush fires, and high-rise fire is a specialty, and it actually is a specialty of mine on Marco. I've done a lot of it, and I think we could really help North Naples residents. Like if you guys rolled into the room with me, you would know exactly to be on the same page if we were merged together and had the same training officer. So,
How do you account for the disparity in pay between Golden Gate and Big Corkscrew? If they're merged, how do you work that out?
I think we do that over a harmonization period, and whether it takes 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years, and I do fully realize about the taxpayer, and whether it's from North Naples or Corkscrew or Golden Gate. I've heard a few comments made about, well, firemen work a special schedule and they can work on their days off too, but most firemen do average about 52 hours a week. They do average, whether if they have a Kelly day or not. But if you can sit an employee down and you can call him average pay for the work compared to like type organizations, whether you take merged organizations, Osceola County is a big one. They just right now around Disney Celebration in there. That's one of the newest ones. But if you can call somebody average, I think that pay can be harmonized, and I think the taxpayer can say, hey, I know that I'm getting a good service for the taxes that are being paid. And it was hard when we went through the millage rate increase. The vote was so close, but I knew if we didn't have that vote, you probably would have 3, maybe 4 people showing up for a house fire. And I know what you can and cannot do with those people instead of the 6 or 7 that show up now.
One of the other pushbacks that we've heard from North Naples is disparity in millage. You've served on the board
Sure.
in Big Corkscrew. Can you address the 1.5 versus 3.5 in Big
Sure, I can. Well, theirs actually went down to 0.95. They just agreed on that. But, it's the scenario about it is certainly we don't have the tax assessment out there. And I think we were one of the first districts to pull off the tax rate increase. We had I think the vote was somewhere around 1,800 to 1,700, and it's going to take us a number of years. It will take us a number of years, but fortunately, if we merge, it does not place that on the back of the North Naples taxpayer. What it does under the chapter, I've got it here, it's 447. If you guys wanted to look it up, or my chief could give you a copy of it. The chapter 447, it talks about that the millage rates within the district boundaries have to stay the same, and we can realize other advantages in labor management negotiations as well too. That's opened up yearly because of the crash of the economy. It's pretty much standard throughout the county. Contracts will open up yearly.
So the merger plan provides that the millage rate won't go up.
The merger plan provides that the millage rates stay the same in each district until, do you guys have a copy of the merger plan? Okay, yeah, so it does that, yep.
Can you tell folks it stays with the same millage for how long going forward? In perpetuity or?
Well, no, the millage rate is right now is going to stay at 3.5. We have that 3.5, and then each year it will be revisited. Each year it will be revisited as we set the budget. And so, for instance, if we lose a chief officer, I know the millage rate plans talk about losing chief officers, then we'll try to, and I know I'll try to adjust because I feel heat from each side, the millage rate down incrementally.
So the goal would be to not increase it, but to decrease it.
But, oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's my goal 100%, and my additional goal is to place people in the position in the merger that's needed. If we need more people in brush fire, and North Naples isn't as busy during the brush fire season, it's just like a big chess game. We position for anything that we have. Or if you guys are busier here, like when I talked to Pelican Bay, when they were in a meeting, they were asking a couple questions. If we have a call out on the golf course, or anywhere else. We want to know, we want best practices in getting to the people as quickly as we can. And we also know that most of our calls, a lot of them are medical. We are getting more fires too, but we need to position quick resources for that. I was involved in the ALS program from its infancy on Marco Island, and I see how that works throughout the county. And I am a full supporter of that as well. And it's actually working very well at Corkscrew right now.
Some folks in North Naples also talk about North Naples is different than Big Corkscrew. It's a developed area now in a rural area. Are you seeing changes out in your community where that's changing?
Yeah, absolutely. And for the last 5 years, a friend of mine is, his name is Jack Sullivan. Jack Sullivan has called me on multiple occasions, and Jack talked to me the other day and talked about all the growth that is going on out by us. And I've never heard him more positive how it's coming. And he said, it's coming. And he goes, you better get ready. And I've always prided myself, whether it's hazmat, dive, fire operations, EMS. I run a 34-foot jet boat down on Marco, of being head of the power curve instead of being behind the power curve. Because if you're behind the power curve, people get hurt. And things don't happen in the correct fashion that they need to happen.
When you say you run a 34-foot jet boat?
Yeah.
What to what end? Is that just for fun, or?
No. Down on Marco, we took delivery on a new $500,000 jet boat, and so I do also. I'm a big fisherman as well, so I like to. So, and we've used that. I'm sure you guys have reported on it so many times on Marco already. I love running that boat.
In terms of the relationship between the firefighters in your district and North Naples, is there a good working relationship there? Yeah,
absolutely. I do know that the union presidents. I do know that the union presidents have totally have totally supported the merger, and I have a good relationship with both of them. Of course, yes, I am a firefighter, but I do know that the unions are always trying to fight for what's best. I understand their financial position as well, so that's probably a hotbed issue, with myself too. But my union stance has always been, if I can get average, I'm no better than anybody else.
So you want, when you say average, is it a statewide average?
Well, no, it's a like type organization. If you took somebody like North Naples, even under a merged organization, and you say, well, this is the same practice they do in Lee County, or is it close to what you have maybe in the middle of the state? Maybe with similar tax assessments and things like that, and how they treat and pay their employees. And I've always thought, if you can ask somebody out, and I've always told my guys, if they get paid average, I don't want to hear anything.
So how do you respond when critics then say that the unions are overrepresented on the fire boards and taxpayers, for lack of a better word, the average taxpayer isn't represented on the board, or needs more representation on the board? Well,
what I say to that is and my wife asks me that question all the time, why did you get into this? Is because I think I have a very good working knowledge of what happens in every fire in most situations, and but I also have the knowledge of what happens when you have somebody negative and you don't pay an employee. It's an average, and what I've seen is years of training, years of operations, and it's up to the people, but I do know that if I am elected, that when somebody puts their head on the pillow at night, that they're going to get the best service. And I know that, there's tough questions that have been asked and been answered, but I have always prided myself in that, and I've got into it with management about that as well.
What distinguishes you against your opponent?
My character.
Can you elaborate on it? What do you mean?
I talked to Mr. Ramsey in the beginning, and I don't want to elaborate anymore, but I think I'm of the highest character, and not to say that he doesn't think the same, but and my years of experience in providing what we essentially are, a life safety organization, and to assist any chief. We have a male and a female chief, and to assist them there, and to also know that I can call their bluff if it's not best practice. So.
We've hit 20 minutes. It goes by pretty
Okay.
quickly here. Any final words you want to add?
No, I just appreciate everybody's vote to continue to serve, and if I am elected, I look forward to the merger. If we do have the merger as well, I will seek that position as well, and to run abroad.